Hi, my name is Stephen Sindoni. I'll be your host for Legend, Mystery, and More. In today's broadcast, I will feature two excerpts taken from a book written by author Emily A. Frank and entitled Mount Shasta, California's Mystic Mountain. Our stories today are from a local mystic who tells a fantastic story about golden temples inside Mount Shasta. The first story, The Golden Goddess of Lemuria, was published in 1931 by a man named Abraham Mansfield, who claimed that he was the appointed chief of the gods of Lemurians. Abraham Mansfield spins a fantastic tale about his personal experience on Mount Shasta. In our second story today, I'll be featuring another story from Mansfield, also from the same book by Emily A. Frank, and that second movie is entitled Who Was Queen Etrusiana? So this will be some interesting stories today based on a local mystic by the name of Abraham Mansfield. But before going into our movie clip, I'd like to take this time and thank our underwriter, our sponsor, Soul Connections, for making this broadcast possible. And Soul Connections is located in the heart of downtown Mount Shasta. So without further delay, I'd like to continue our ongoing series of Legends of Mount Shasta and cue up our first clip, if we can, to watch The Golden Goddess of Lemuria. Can we do that right now? My name is Stephen Sindoni. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Legends of Mount Shasta. In our broadcast today, we will discuss the Golden Goddess of the Lemurians in a book written by Abraham Mansfield, with excerpts from Emily A. Frank's book, Mount Shasta, California's Mystic Mountain. Abraham Mansfield believed that Lemurian gold mines exist deep within Mount Shasta and wrote several books about mines and other phenomena. Abraham claimed that he was the appointed chief of the gods of the Lemurians. The year was 1931. Mansfield tells of the experiences of his friend, not named in his book for personal reasons, who had lost his way on the northeast side of Mount Shasta while following a wounded deer. He finally found the dead buck, but he had become completely lost and had wandered around until he was exhausted. Quoting from Mansfield's book, about 3:30 a.m. he heard something saying, "Why don't you come with me?" My friend looked up, and to his surprise there stood a being 7 feet tall who said, "I am a Lemurian. What are you doing here?" Mansfield then divulges the experiences of his friend, who was taken voluntarily to a palace and gardens beneath Mount Shasta. His friend and the Lemurian kept going down, 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 and finally the Lemurian said, "We are here in the shaft of gold, and it is only a little further to my cave, which is lined with gold. You can sleep on my slab of gold. You will not need blankets because the slab was heated chemically thousands of years ago and never loses its constant heat. It is similar to the sun." The golden pillow was placed under the man's head, and he was told, "Think of what time you would prefer to awaken, and you will, as the pillow is a mental thought pillow, radiated, so you will become acquainted with mental seance, like the other Lemurians of the living dead beings." The man was also told, according to Mansfield, that there were a series of tunnels and shafts, or flues, left by the volcanoes, which were connected together under the earth like highways, like a world within a world, and the shaft went several hundred miles in any direction. As for the brightness in that underworld, he was told that the walls were painted with a liquid sunshine, and were as bright in all the caverns as though the sun itself were shining through. One shaft, he was told, led to the ocean and was near the wilds of Del Norte County, 90 miles to the west, near a monastery that was built to train religious Lemurians, and that this shaft lined with gold was accessible from the outside. "I saw," the man told Mansfield later, "plates and gold-lined shafts, and tables and chairs unbelievably monstrous in size." Then I asked the Lemurian about the beings. He said they had gone to the center of the earth
to a far better world than that which existed near the surface in the volcanic caverns, and that he would take me there if I wished. The bewildered man, however, decided to return to the surface, mostly to see if he were indeed still alive. The Lemurian agreed to take him back, explaining that he could not be taken to the surface until he was decongested, explaining that otherwise he would die upon entering the surface when confronting the outside air. After thinking it over, the man decided to stay and see a few more sights before returning. He told Mansfield later, "I wanted to see the Lemurian treasure vaults and things from the long ago Etruscan and Lemurian civilizations." The Lemurians said that the crown jewels and gold were there, but there was nothing about their way of life, as they never kept scientific records at the mines. The gold was taken out for all nations of the world, and they built temples with gold on the islands of Etruria and Lemuria. The Lemurian, according to Mansfield's book, told the man that he grew carrots 2 feet long and 2 feet through, and all other vegetables and fruits the same. He showed the crown jewels of the Lemurian and Etruscan civilizations of thousands of years ago, and said the Lemurian and the Etruscan treasures are still there, the way they were left after the Ice Age. Quoting Mansfield from his book, "Before the Ice Age, the ocean was 5 miles from what is now Mount Shasta." Finally, after seeing other wonders, the man asked to be returned to the surface. "I told Lemurian," he told Mansfield later, "that I'd like to return to see if I was still actually alive, and find my car and my friend, who had been hunting with me when I got lost." I explained that he must be worried by now, as I had my car keys in my pocket, and it was a long walk home for him. Thereupon, he was decongested and returned safely to the surface. He told Mansfield after they were reunited, "On the outside, they left me on my own again and completely disappeared into the depths of the mountain. I wandered around looking for the road and my car. Finally, I said to myself, 'You fool, get down off this mountain and start over. Go up the old emigrant road that you were on and find your car where you and Mansfield left it yesterday, or whatever day it was.' He found his car in Mansfield, who said he had nearly frozen to death the night before. As they left the mountain, they compared notes, discovering that they had both had former eerie experiences, and Mansfield revealed that he was acquainted with the shafts of gold and the plates of time from happenings in his own life. His friend said to him, 'You speak of the shaft lined with gold, the plates of time, and the Yukian of God's sciences. I saw the Yukian on the walls of the caves I slept in, and as the plates of time state, it is time to tell the world, and you were the one chosen for the mission.'" Mansfield explains that the plates of time were assembled thousands of years ago. The Ice Age was coming on, which meant total destruction. The rulers of that ancient civilization were highly educated and had highly civilized sciences, including atomic power. They tried to combat the ice floes by melting them. They blew deep holes in the earth. The more melting, the more water, earthquakes, and volcanic action. Their civilization was destroyed by the use of atomic power. The plates of time were assembled for future generations to preserve the knowledge that they had about atomic power, so that a new generation would use it wisely and respect the powers of God in any and all things from beginning to end of all worlds and time. I like to end by saying, if we do not learn from the past, we will be doomed to repeat it. Thank you for tuning in to the broadcast of the Golden Goddess of the Lemurians.
Well, there you have it. That was Abraham Mansfield's first take on what he had discovered about Mount Shasta. Coming forward with a story like that is very unbelievable, just to say the least. I'd like to start wrapping up that story now and start with our second story. In our second story, you're going to see what is called the movie Who Was Queen Etrusiana? This is also claims of Abraham Mansfield and taken from the excerpts of Emily A. Frank's book as well. I feel privileged to be able to share these wonderful, often astonishing legends and incredible tales about the magic mountain known to all of us as Mount Shasta. So let's go back now and see our second movie, if we can, entitled Who Was Queen Etrusiana?
My name is Stephen Sindoni. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Legends of Mount Shasta. In our broadcast today, we will discuss Queen Etrusiana from an Abraham Mansfield book entitled The Golden Goddess of the Lemurians, with excerpts from Emily A. Frank's book entitled Mount Shasta, California's Mystic Mountain. The late Abraham Mansfield had a story to tell. He believed that Lemurians flourished in the Mount Shasta area, and he wrote a book in which he revealed the secrets of the Lemurian gold mines and also the circumstances which led to his unorthodox appointment and coronation as chief of the gods of the Lemurians, an honor which enabled him to view what he called the plates of time, which deal with mathematical equations and dimensions of secret solar control of atomic energy. Abraham Mansfield also claimed that he was in possession, having received 1/6 of Queen Etrusiana's jewels. Who was Queen Etrusiana? And how does it fit into this story? I will explain it to you as Abraham Mansfield himself, the author of the book, explained it to Emily A. Frank. Emily Frank was writing for the Dunsmuir News, a small weekly newspaper in extreme Northern California, when his book, The Golden Goddess of Lemurians, came out in 1970, and he sent her a copy of it. Along with the book, Abraham Mansfield sent enough strange material on Mount Shasta to fill 4 large manila envelopes. Some of the material was confusing to Emily A. Frank, but Abraham Mansfield swore it was all true. Mansfield said the plates of time are the treasured and ancient sciences of God from the very beginning and relate to a people deceased thousands of years ago. They dwelled on a chain of islands which sank into the oceans which we know now as the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. They were islands which included Etrusia, Lemuria, Atlantis, and Oceantis. According to Mansfield, these prehistoric civilizations had far greater knowledge than we do of atom power, ESP, electronics, and science, and could pick up messages that were recorded in time and space from back civilizations to the beginning of time. He said that Etrusian Lemurian story and the plates of time had been around for thousands of years, and his theory was as follows. Down the dim corridors of the ages, the world was different than it is now, and many islands flourished which have since sank to the bottom of the oceans. Among them were the above-mentioned islands, and they were ruled by Queen Etrusiana, as was the entire world as it was known then, through a 10-nations council. Her husband, the king, was interested in other things. He was a great scientist and spent much of his time viewing foreign planets, building pyramids, and great towers. It appears, however, that the king was sterile. Queen Etrusiana wanted sons to rule the world, so she took the 10 kings of the 10 Nations Council, one at a time, and produced 6 sons and 1 daughter. Thus, endowed with future kings, she and her sons would continue to rule the world. Queen Etrusiana's plan was interrupted, however, when the Ice Age started. Mansfield claims in his book that the world tipped from north to south, throwing the south pole of the equator on the opposite side of the earth. In the chain of events, he wrote, all the ocean's currents were forced to flow northward. Quoting Mansfield, it was like a giant trowel around the center of the earth with a rim on both sides and the middle. Knowing of the impending disaster, Queen Etrusiana and her king ordered 10 million Etruscans and Mongols to build reed boats with a light wooden structure. These boats were designed to hold 10,000 people and enough food to last until they could get to the top of the ice floe and recede with it. Then, when the expected second tip of the world came, all that could boarded the boats and headed north. According to Mansfield, north was safest because the safest place at the time of the Ice Age was at the top of the ice floe. Some took refuge on the highest parts of what is now South America, at one time Etrusia, and then some took refuge on any high land which protruded above the water. At the time of the disaster, Queen Etrusiana decreed that her 6 son kings would be kings forever in heredity, even from the world beyond. The survivors of the Ice Age diligently kept records of the descendants of these sons through mental seances in order to find the rightful heirs to rule as the chief of the gods of Lemurians, a reign, said Mansfield, that changes every 30 years, even now. Also decreed was that the Inca nation was to train their chiefs, find the rightful king in heredity, and entrust to them the scientific knowledge of the plates of time so as to keep the knowledge on the plates forever alive, or to quote Mansfield, until our present civilization should become as enlightened in sciences as were those who lived before them. The manner in which Abraham Joseph Mansfield became chief of the gods of Lemurians was, as he said, through mental seances. And so it was in a bizarre chain of events that Mansfield became chief of the gods of Lemurians in 1934 in a ceremony performed at sunrise in the wilds of Del Norte County at the throne which was situated east of the Lemurian monastery under the cliffs at the heads of Bluff and Blue Creeks near Cinder Cone Peak. In that ceremony, Mansfield claims the honor entitled him to 1/6 of Queen Etrusiana's jewels and also ownership to a most valuable Lemurian gold mine within the deep recesses of Mount Shasta, a shaft in which gold hung like icicles. This privilege, he said, was handed down to him through heredity from the ancient and enlightened Etruscan, Lemurian, and Atlantean civilizations. His reign ended in 1964 after 30 years, and he decided to write about it. What's more, Mansfield claimed he had Queen Etrusiana's jewels to prove it. Mansfield had a bracelet with Etrusiana engraved inside of it. The ornate bracelet is designed with 10 major crowns and 26 lesser crowns, which represented the large and small nations of the world as it was when she reigned. He said Queen Etrusiana wore this bracelet at all the meetings of the 10-Nation Council, which were held on the island of Etrusia. Also in Mansfield's possession was royal platinum servingware embossed with angels, plus the Queen's coronation bracelet, a pendant, other jewelry, and an actual faded likeness of prehistoric Queen Etrusiana. Since Abraham Mansfield's passing, other stories have appeared unexpectedly, which seems to corroborate his story. J.C. Brown, alias J.B. Body of the Legend of J.C. Brown, also believed that he had found the mummified remains of Queen Etrusiana under Mount Shasta. Ancient history is waiting patiently to be revealed. Thank you for tuning into the broadcast of Who Was Queen Etrusiana?
And there you have it, the stories told by Abraham Mansfield, a local man of the Mount Shasta area in the early 1930s. As you undoubtedly know by now, mystery and intrigue is synonymous with Mount Shasta. Abraham Mansfield believed that Lemurian gold mines exist deep within Mount Shasta. So did the man who claimed to be J.C. Brown. Mr. Mansfield claimed to have been given the ancient secrets of the Lemurian gold mines, which allowed him to view what he referred to as the plates of time. Abraham Mansfield asserted that the Lemurian civilization once flourished long ago on 4 islands in the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. As I mentioned earlier, in the course of my own personal research to solve the legend of J.C. Brown, I came across information that talked about a village on the Mount Shasta where an ancient burial chamber with the remains of a mummified king and queen in ornate robes were found. It is my hope that these ancient myths and legends will one day in the not-too-distant future be solved. In our next broadcast, I'll be featuring more interesting stories about legends of Mount Shasta, so hopefully you'll tune into that broadcast because we have some interesting things that we're going to share with you. And today's shows have been shows that I really enjoyed bringing with you because, as I said, Abraham Mansfield was a local in this area, and to go out on a limb, which he did, to share these amazing and astonishing and bizarre tales of ancient civilizations buried deep below Mount Shasta is far-fetched enough, and either he had a great imagination or there lies some truth in what he shared with us and what I've shared with you today. I like to continue bringing more stories to you like this. I've got more stories about legends. I'll be bringing you stories about UFOs, stories about American history, the Great Fires of New York, and other stories that will hopefully allow you to open up your minds and see that there are many things that have yet to be revealed. And I just like to take a look at things and take them apart and see where we go with them. But I felt Emily A. Frank, being a local in the area, had many stories to share with us that some may be myths, some may be legend, and truth has to lie somewhere in the middle. And so I felt it was good to look at some of these legends of Mount Shasta and see why someone of Mrs. Frank's background would take the time to go ahead and spend a number of years researching all these stories and bring them to life in her paperback novel. Well, there are many stories that can be found at the COS College in Weed, and also online you can find a lot of stories about Lemuria and ancient civilizations. And so this story has been around for many thousands of years, and California is synonymous with these legends, and you wonder why these legends continue to live on long after the stories have been told. So it's interesting enough that these things keep resurfacing, and many people come here looking for the mystique of the Magic Mountain. I myself have come here almost 4.5 months ago and still am enthralled by the mystique of the mountain. I've been on the mountain many times and enjoy the feeling, the eclectic electric energy that the mountain has to offer. I've met many people throughout the world who have come here with the hope of having something magical happen at Mount Shasta. Does magical things happen for everyone? That depends. But the mind is like a parachute. It'll only work if it's open. So many people come here with the hope that something mystical and magical will happen. Many people believe that there's a reason that they've come here, as though they've have come here before. So hopefully you've enjoyed our program. And in our next broadcast, I'll be featuring 2 more interesting stories about Mount Shasta, and hopefully you'll enjoy them. I believe the next broadcast will be about UFOs, and so hopefully you'll stay tuned. I think you'll find it interesting about more legends of unexplained craft and occurrences by locals who claim to have seen some phenomenal things in the skies of Mount Shasta for over 30 to 40 years. So this will be very interesting. So for those of you who've been watching, continue watching. Tell a friend, tell someone that Legend, Mystery, and More is just what it's cracked up to be, stories that you won't find anywhere else. So thank you for tuning in today to our broadcast of Legend, Mystery, and More. And I want to thank everyone who at the studio who's been helping me to bring these shows to you and make things possible. So shout out to everyone here today for making this possible. And hopefully people like you will tell other people so that we can get everyone happily involved in the process and we can continue to do more shows like this. And I want to thank our sponsor, Soul Connections, for making this all possible today. So if we're...
Soul Connection store is located at 329 North Mount Shasta Boulevard in the heart of downtown Mount Shasta, California. Soul Connections is a Golden Age emporium. Their mission is to service each soul walking the spiritual path. They are continually searching for one-of-a-kind handmade quality items from around the world that have the intent and design for just the right person. You can stop into their store or go to their website at soulconnectionstore.com and take a store tour. And once online, you can shop the online store. Then follow the easy-to-understand how to order instructions. You can even learn about their workshops. For all of your spiritual needs, visit Soul Connection Store in Mount Shasta or call them at 530-918-9533.